On August 15, 1971, a Sunday evening, Richard Nixon walked onto national television and made a short announcement that almost nobody outside Wall Street understood at the time. He said the United States would no longer convert dollars into gold. The link that had held the global financial system together since World War II, broken with one sentence. He framed it as temporary. It was not. That decision is the reason the dollar in your pocket is worth less than it was last year. It is the reason your rent keeps climbing while your salary does not. And it is the reason that 55 years later, every central bank on the planet is quietly preparing for a world where the dollar is no longer king. In 1971, when Nixon ended the gold standard, U.S. federal debt was approximately $250 billion. Today, in 2026, it is approximately $38 trillion. That is 150 times larger in 55 years. The dollar is no longer backed by gold, no longer backed by anything physical at all. It is backed by one single thing: the world's willingness to keep trusting it. And that trust is slipping, not collapsing. In 2001, the dollar made up roughly 71% of all foreign currency reserves held by central banks around the world. That number today is approximately 57 to 58%, the lowest it has been since the 1990s. Central banks are not dumping dollars in panic. They are quietly diversifying year after year away from a currency they no longer fully trust. And what are they buying instead? Gold. For the first time since 1996, central banks now hold more gold than U.S. Treasury securities. The institutions that literally run the global financial system are choosing rocks dug out of the ground over American government debt. In 2025 alone, central banks bought approximately 1,237 tons of gold. The fourth straight year, above 1,000 tons. The historical average before this, around 473 tons per year, roughly 3 times the normal pace, sustained for 4 consecutive years. This is not a market trend. This is a coordinated, quiet exit from dollar dependence, and the price has reacted accordingly. Gold hit a record high above $5,600 per ounce, currently trading around $4,600. Up over 60% in 2025 alone. Goldman Sachs targets $5,400. JPMorgan calls for $6,300. Deutsche Bank says $6,000. When the biggest banks on Wall Street all start raising their gold forecasts at the same time, that is not random. That is them admitting on paper what they cannot say on television. Now let's talk about who is leading this exit, because it is not happening evenly. The BRICS bloc, that is Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, plus the new addition Saudi Arabia, collectively now holds approximately 17.4% of all global central bank gold reserves. In 2019, that number was 11.2%. They have been buying aggressively and openly. Russia holds approximately 2,336 tons of gold. China, officially, about 2,298 tons. Many analysts believe China's real holdings are significantly higher than what they report. Either way, Moscow and Beijing together control roughly 3/4 of the entire BRICS gold pile. These countries are not buying gold because they are nostalgic. They are buying it because they have watched what happens when you cross the United States on the wrong day. After Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, the U.S. froze approximately $300 billion of Russian foreign reserves overnight with a few keystrokes without trial. Every central bank on earth got the same message at the same time: your dollar reserves are not your money. They are our money, and we can turn them off whenever we want. That was the moment the slow drift became a sprint. When the dollar slowly loses its reserve status, which is what is happening right now in slow motion, Americans do not benefit. Americans pay for it. The reason the United States can run a $38 trillion debt without imploding is that the world is forced to absorb dollars to settle trade. Every barrel of oil, most international transactions, half of global trade, all of it ran through dollars by default. That demand kept the dollar strong, kept inflation lower than it should have been, kept American consumers able to afford imports. When that demand fades, and it is fading, that subsidy disappears. Things you import get more expensive. Things you save in dollars lose value faster. The interest you pay on every loan trends higher because foreign buyers of U.S. Treasuries are quietly stepping away. Foreign official holdings of U.S. Treasuries have already dropped from over 50% of the market before 2008 to roughly 30% today. You are not going to see this on the news with a big red banner. There is no crash. There is no moment. There is just a slow erosion of purchasing power that every working American can feel, but few can name. Now look, let's be precise. Nobody serious is predicting the dollar collapses next year. That is not the story. The British pound used to hold 80% of global reserves in 1913. By 1970, that number was under 10%. Sterling did not crash overnight. It took 50 years of slow drift. The dollar is following the exact same trajectory, just 30 years behind. The math is brutal, and the math is also patient. The question is not whether the dollar loses its throne. Historically, every reserve currency eventually has. The question is what fills the vacuum, and whether you are positioned for the world that comes after. So here's the part that matters for you. When the global financial system shifts, and it is shifting right now in real time, while most Americans are arguing about something else on Twitter, the people who get hurt the worst are the ones holding all their wealth in one currency, one country, and one type of asset. They are not the ones who understood what was happening and made small adjustments. They are the ones who never knew the game had changed. Diversification across asset classes, geographies, and currencies is the kind of boring advice that suddenly becomes very important when the slow drift becomes the new normal. Nixon ended convertibility in 1971 and called it temporary. The world is still living inside the consequences 55 years later. The next chapter is already being written. The only question is whether you are reading it. If this changed how you see your money, subscribe to Buckonomics.